So we began the season saying that Cooper Mays was the most important player for Tennessee, other than Joe Milton, and maybe even most important with Joe Milton on the slate, because there's a drop-off to a guy named Nico, and he should be pretty good. By the way, did you get any strong thoughts, John, on what limited time you saw out of Nico in relief duty on Saturday? I didn't pull much away other than what I already thought.
No, I mean, we've all heard really good things about him. So he didn't do anything to change my way of thinking. And I think there's a tendency with someone who is ballyhooed as Nico, when they go into the games, fans will magnify anything he does in a positive manner. If he catches this shotgun snap flawlessly, people will rave about his ball handling skills. I just think that's the nature of the beast there.
No, I agree. Remind you that portions of the program brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best prices, best service in the biz there in the Knoxville area. He's my realtor. He should be yours. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Again, AndyMasonRealEstate.com for all of your real estate needs. So we talked about Cooper Mays being the most important player before the season. Then, bam, Ollie Lane jumps in. And the interior of Tennessee's offensive line, I thought, played really well. I didn't think there were any A-gap. Again, this is Virginia, but there weren't any A-gap pressures, which is the gap between the center and the guard. And also, I thought that at times there was a really good push in the interior of the offensive line. So I ask you this, guys, who are Tennessee's at the end of the season? We will say this guy was Jalen Hyatt. In other words, we would all have said at the end of last year, Hendon Hooker was the best player. So if everything goes to plan, Joe Milton at the end of the season, we will say Tennessee's best player was Joe Milton. So after what we saw on Saturday, who's vying to be the second best impactful player? Because we saw a lot of guys contribute. Tyler Barron wins SEC Defensive Player of the Week. So
defensive lineman, not player. Lineman.
Defensive lineman, excuse me. So, John, let me begin with you. Who's in the running to be the second best player of the 2023 season for the Vols when all is said and done?
I really like Amari Thomas. I hadn't seen a guy in the middle of the line at Tennessee do what he's doing in a while. He was really covering ground. He's strong. I mean, he was a highly touted player coming in, but I think he's really hit his stride. I think he will be, to me, he will be a bigger factor than Tyler Barron. And I think Barron's success in part will be attributable, and I'm not knocking Barron, but I think it will partly be attributable to Amari Thomas and how he plays in that middle. He is somebody that I think other teams will look at and say, okay, we got to deal with this guy. What are we doing?
Caleb, I know you love Amari.
Love Amari. Just want to point out Nashville's growing so much, and the Memphis kid is still more important than any Nashville kid on Tennessee. I actually do love Amari. And it's funny, John, I said the exact same thing over the weekend. I felt Tyler Barron and James Pierce, everything they did was because of Amari, and the one touchdown drive that Tennessee gave up just happened to be the one drive that Amari Thomas got hurt. So I'm with John on that. I'm still probably going to go. I'm going to go on the other side, but I'm going to stay in the trenches. I love Javonte Spraggins. I still love Javonte Spraggins. I think he's the centerpiece of what makes Tennessee's interior blocking go so well when they run the ball. So I'm going to go Javonte Spraggins, but I mean, I'm only doing that because John picked Amari Thomas, because I would have picked Amari Thomas.
I'm gonna differ from both of you guys, and the reason I'm going to do so is because of that Sunday show with Fred that we did on what day of the week you think, John?
I have no idea.
Sunday. It's called That Sunday Show with Fred. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And it's brought to you by
what day is that show on? Again,
it's on February. That show.
Billy Napier probably would get that wrong.
He shows up on a Thursday. He goes, when are we doing this show? But that show brought to you by the Herald Group. Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, also making your children safer one school at a time. They work with private schools to avoid just the traumatic, terrible school shootings that we have seen. Go to heraldgrp.com, heraldgrp.com. Tell your school administrator that's who you need to make your school safe, and they'll be working with public schools soon. I'm gonna offer you this, John. You may not have seen it, but our friend Fred White, I said, who does he remind you of? No, two things. Fred doesn't overspeak. He's the exact opposite of a Skip Bayless. Fred also hates comparisons. And John, he said that his ceiling is Leonard Little. That to me is a pretty darn good ceiling.
Well, you're talking about James Pierce. You're talking about James Pierce.
I don't know who you're talking about, Dave.
Yeah, you didn't name the player.
James Pierce. Sorry, James Pierce.
Okay, way to go, Billy.
James, from now on, a dumb move is a Billy.
Details, Dave. Details.
James Pierce, the player I'm talking about, a number 3 on your program now. But James Pierce, I believe, will be the second best player at the end of the season for the Vols.
I think it's really good, a good sign for Tennessee when we're talking about all these different defensive players. And I think Aaron Beasley's pretty good. I mean, it's been a while when you had that many defensive players. We're talking about Tyler Barron. We're talking about James Pierce. We're talking about Amari Thomas. Tennessee has some playmakers on defense now. And I don't know if they have any in the secondary yet. It's too early to tell. But I think their job will be made easier because of these guys in the front seven.
Yeah, I really like him, and I was absolutely stunned when I heard Fred say Leonard Little. Caleb.
He said that on Sunday, right? Just
yes.
Want to make sure. Okay.
Yes.
Sunday show
on that Thursday show with Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not. Look, I defer to Fred. I defer to football players in certain things, and so I'll defer to him on saying James Pierce, Leonard Little. I wasn't willing to go there, but I could. That's a bold comparison. Now the question is, will Tim Banks decide?
He said that's the ceiling. To be clear, he didn't say he is Leonard Little right now, embodied. So
the question is, will Tim Banks have the genius decision that John Chavis had to put James Pierce at middle linebacker instead of defensive end?
that was after.
You know what that was, John? That was a Billy.
Well, it was also a Brian Kelly because that's what he did with Harold Perkins. The guy was the best defensive player in the SEC last year as a freshman. So what does he do? We want to make him a conventional middle linebacker. Learn this system, learn to play middle linebacker. And what did he do against Florida State? He just stood back there, looked around. Every now and then he'd cover receiver. And mostly he spied on Jordan Travis. So I don't know what they're thinking. They need to rethink that fast because that guy could do things other people can't do. Leonard Little was an elite pass rusher. And Tennessee said, hey, let's try him out in the middle, see how that goes. And I was in Florida advancing that game that week, and I was in Spurrier's office, and this is like 2 games into the season, and I'm walking out the door, and Steve says, how's that little Leonard Little looking at middle linebacker? He knew how he was looking when he said that.
Brutal.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, and Steve Spurrier known to maybe call a columnist on Florida Week to try to stir the pot a little bit before the Tennessee-Florida game.
Yeah, that happened a few times.
Maybe it did.
He also knew he was smarter than everybody in the room in the SEC in the 90s. I feel like he was aware of how much smarter he was than everybody.
Totally agree. Let's not lose the forest for the trees here for a moment, because I think the biggest question mark overall was Joe Milton. So, John, what did you think of Joe Milton specifically in the middle of the first half? I don't know if rattled is the right word. That's maybe a little bit too strong. But when Ramel Keaton dropped what would have been an 80-yard touchdown pass, he he missed a couple of players, and I think there was even Vol Twitter, as Caleb told me, was going crazy to get Nico in the game.
Yeah,
I know. But he righted the ship and played exceptionally well throughout. I also thought they took advantage of some of those over the middle passes that he throws better than Hendon Hooker. What did you think of his performance as a whole?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a continuation of how he played against Clemson. He was under control. He didn't turn the ball over. Hit some nice passes. We take it for granted when he completes passes sometimes because he throws the ball so hard. And so he gets the ball in there fast when the receiver is open. He gets it in there on time. You see some quarterbacks who get it there just a hair late, and it enables the defensive back to recover. He's really good about that. And, yeah, I was the same way. But this is how it is with Tennessee's offense. If it goes 3 and out, people go into panic mode. Like they think it's supposed to score a touchdown every possession. And he had a bad sequence there when I thought he made 3 bad passes. But look around the SEC. Look at the other quarterbacks. I watched a lot of football this weekend. Everybody has some bad sequences. And so overall, I thought it was a good showing.
Yeah, I'm on board. I think he did a fantastic job. Portions of the program brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT. That's HAT to receive some free swag with your cider order. Available most anywhere in the U.S. Promo code HAT. Go to tncidercompany.com. Get great cider delivered almost anywhere. tncidercompany.com. Yeah, I go from pretty confident to really confident in Joe Milton moving forward. By the same token, this is not on the road against Alabama or playing Georgia at home.
Yes, but it was. I mean, look, Tennessee, crazy enough, had the most quality win of any SEC team this past weekend, and Joe Milton should not have had to share SEC co-offensive player of the week with Jalen Milroe. I'm sorry, but Joe Milton did more against whatever you think of Virginia. They're a better team than MTSU. And so I don't think he should have had to share that. He should have won it by himself. I think the thing that sticks with me is I do think he really wanted that touchdown to Ramel Keaton. And, John, we talked about this over the weekend. And I think you could tell that it rattled him just a little bit when Keaton dropped it because he really wanted that touchdown back. And that's when the overthrows came, or the missed throws came on the next drive. And I think the thing that really sticks out to me is he did, right after that, settle down. Don't forget, it was their second touchdown drive. I think it was like a 2nd and 22. And he made a perfect pass to Ramel Keaton right at that point. And that easily could have been a time where he could have panicked.
Yeah, that was a good throw. And, I'm with you on Jalen Milroe. I think there's so much certainty about Alabama's quarterback situation that when Jalen Milroe went out there and didn't turn the ball over repeatedly as he did last season at times, there was just a rush to judgment about how good he has become. I'm still not sold on Jalen Milroe. I mean, I think he's a terrific runner, but I'm still not sold on his just dropping back there, completing pass after pass. We'll see against better competition. Maybe we'll see this Saturday.
John, last thing, you've had a weekend to watch the college football and the SEC. What was your prediction before the season for Tennessee? And would you change it if I gave you a redo after the first weekend?
No, and I wrote this. I like Tennessee more. I predicted Tennessee to go 10-2. I look at it maybe still 10-2, but a stronger 10-2. I liked it more after that game. And for the main reason is because of what we have discussed earlier about the defense making plays. Tyler Barrett, Omari Thomas, I just feel the defense just looks stronger, looks quicker. So I would say maybe not any better than 10-2, but it's a stronger 10-2. And I don't see it getting blown out by Georgia. I don't see it getting blown out by anybody. I think he'll be competitive against the very best teams on its schedule.
John, great stuff. 3-time Hall of Famer John Adams joins us, and we really appreciate that. Have a great rest of the. Don't laugh, man. That's awesome. If they had a birding Hall of Fame, you'd be a 4-time Hall of Famer.
No, I'm a C- birder on my best day.
But you are
the great birders. The great birders laugh at me. Yeah.
You're like a Division II birder.
Yeah,
he still lost the 1800 election to Thomas Jefferson, though. So,
John, have a blessed week. We appreciate it, buddy.
Take care, guys.